tell us about that experience where you were looking for your relatives for 35 years from the Holocaust in Poland.
Okay, that probably starts back to when I was about 20 years old. After the 73 war in Israel, I went as a volunteer to help on kibbutz, and I actually lived in Israel for 6 months. In that time, I thought I'd try and find relatives of my dad, because he came to Australia as the sole surviving relative of person in his family. So for 6 months I tried in Israel when I was there, and I was 20 years old and with my limited experience, and I couldn't find anyone. The only thing I did find out, however, that my father was older than what he had told us, because he didn't realise. In those times, people had forgotten. My father was an amazing man. People have a lot of heroes in their life. My hero is my dad.
That's beautiful to say.
Now, the thing is, why is he my hero? Not because he's done something amazing, but what he has done is amazing. He was around 20 years old when the war broke out in Poland. He came from a little village called Konstantinov near the Ukraine border. Now, that part of Poland was virtually invaded the first days of World War II. You know, the German army overran it and virtually decimated that area. My father's family had been in this village Konstantinov for nearly 200 years. And the family was extensive. It was huge from what he told us. But again, when he told us all these things, I was young, and I wasn't that interested. Yeah, that's nice, Dad, and I didn't take a lot of it in. It's only later in life. My father died 25 years ago, and it was later in life that I wanted to know why I didn't have any relations. My father, when he was 20, went off to visit a relative of his in a nearby village. He came back, this is from the story he told me, he came back and his mother was waiting for him saying, "The Germans are here, run." It was the last he ever saw of his family. How many of us today could cope with that? And he was one of the lucky. My father was very, very lucky. He didn't go to a concentration camp. You know, he didn't die like 6 million others. He was picked up by the Russians and taken to Siberia, like for many of us would be a concentration camp. But he was in the gulags of Siberia in minus 30 or 40 degrees in the frozen wastes there, and he survived 6 years in Siberia. After the war, he wandered around Europe for around 3 or 4 years. He went back to Poland. He couldn't find any surviving relatives, and from what I can remember, from what he told me, he wanted to get as far away from the killing and what happened to his family as possible. And Australia, who'd ever heard of it? He thought there was kangaroos running in the street. So that's as far away as from Europe as he thought of. He came to Australia, met my mother, and here I am. Now, after I was 20, I went to Israel and I started looking, and in the ensuing years I came back, I made a life, I got married, but I still looked. I constantly looked. I looked on in books. I rang people with similar names all around the world for years and years and years. I must have talked to hundreds of people, and to no avail. And about 2 years ago, I decided with my son I wanted to go and show him where my father was born. So I said, we're going to Poland. At the time, there's a thing called the March of the Living, where people from all over the world go to Auschwitz concentration camp and do a symbolic march, which is around 3 kilometres, to Birkenau extermination camp, where most of the gassings took place. And 2 years ago, there was around 20-odd thousand people from around the world went. We went back, we looked all over Poland, and I actually had hired a guide to take me back to my father's village. Went back there, I looked. We couldn't find any trace of any family. The only thing I did find in that time was a scant record. I found a school book of my first cousin that died when she was 6 years old. That's the only record that I found that my father was actually from this village. What I was looking for was concrete evidence that this is where we come from. Because I firmly believe to go forward in life we must know where we come from. And it was like Alex Haley in Roots. When I saw this school book with my cousin's name, her little name there, Leah Coleman, and she was 6 years old when she was murdered by the Nazis. And what made it really real, I remember the director of the school actually had opened the school on a Sunday for my son and I to come in and have a look. And my guide had translated everything for me. And we opened the book, and there her name was, and he's reading her marks written there, and he said to me, and she's wasn't a good student, which made it a bit funny, you know, and but it made it real. And I knew then suddenly this is where I'm from. Going forward a little bit, 2 years, I had a posting on a website called Jewish Gen, where families can post a name, and people, if they look, they can find it. And I had never heard anything about this. Nothing, no one had ever come back to me. And about 2 months ago, I got an email from a researcher I had working for me that said, I have an email from someone in California who has the same name as you. It seems to be very similar backgrounds. So I emailed her, she emailed me, we started talking on the phone, and within a day we realised we're second cousins. Really, I couldn't have been happier. It's amazing. We've talked on the phone a few times, and it's like I've known this woman that I'm talking to, Sippy, I've known her all my life. We just talk, we're not looking for words, you know, it's just amazing. So I said to her straight after I talked to her, I said, you know what, I'll come and see you in California. And then she said, well, I'm going to be in Israel for my mother's 80th birthday in the middle of March. And I said, well, I have to go to Belgium on business in the first week of April. You know what, I'll meet you in Israel and come to a family function because there's more family there as well. So we're going to meet at her mother's 80th birthday on the 25th of March in Tel Aviv. So that I'm looking forward to.
How exciting. Are you going with your family as well?
No, I'm going on my own.
Wow. This is a special little journey for you,
this
isn't it?
To me, best, and it's my birthday on the 23rd of March, and this is the best birthday present I could ever have.
Oh, that's beautiful. And